Book 15 in 2019 was Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. So I've been wanting to read this for a really long time because Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor in about 161 AD, so quite a long time ago. And he's kind of like quoted a lot in like various different books. When I was reading Darren Brown's Happy, he was, you know, quoted a lot in there, and Stoicism, which is like a branch of kind of philosophy and reasoning, I guess, was kind of talked about a lot. And I think personally, like, I am very stoic in my views and very kind of like realistic in the way that I view things, very practical. And so I kind of resonated a lot with what Marcus Aurelius was like talking about. So essentially his meditations are kind of like almost like diary entries. He never intended for them to be published or for anybody else to read them, so they're kind of like just him reflecting on himself as a person and on life and on, you know, the way that things are. And I found this really interesting because in today's society we're always like talking about how the youth of today are, you know, nothing like we were when we were young, and kind of like talking about how society is very now superficial and materialistic and kind of like a certain way on the surface but like completely different in reality. And what Marcus Aurelius is talking about is pretty much it's kind of applicable to today, to like what's going on today. He, like, one of his values that he says is like, don't kind of like value fame, and to like not kind of put emphasis on superficial things. I can't remember the actual word and what he was talking about, but everything he was saying was pretty kind of like what's going on today. And it's like almost as if it get actually my thoughts are going faster than my mouth. It gets you thinking like, this is human nature, this is what human beings do. Like, we're looking around thinking that it's a product of our society, when in actual fact we've always been like this. Like, we've always, you know, started off being quite superficial, then we have a kind of like what's the word, like we have an epiphany that this is a, you know, this hedonistic lifestyle is unfulfilling, and then we try and seek deeper meaning, and then we find deeper meaning in kind of like, you know, separating ourselves from other people and kind of going inwards to find out who we are. Like, this is what humans do, and even, you know, Eastern philosophy says that this is what we do. So it's like really interesting to think that even like 2,000 years ago, or give or take a few hundred years, like people were thinking the exact same thing, they were behaving in the exact same way. So I think what would be really interesting study would be to analyse like historical writings and what people, their sources and things, to see the development of consciousness over time. I think that would be really interesting. I've just been reading like a big philosophy book. It's called The Big Philosophy Book, I might just call it that. Or is it the, yeah, it is. Or is it just, no, it's just called The Philosophy Book, but it's big, I would just call it that. And there's a, was it, oh, who was it? I've literally just read about it now. I want to say Hegel, but I don't think it was him, or maybe it was him, but saying like yeah, I think it was Hegel, and it's saying that like philosophies, what am I talking about, that the consciousness is in history. No, I can't really explain that very well. I've got it in my head and I can see it, and I'm like, it's going to take me ages to explain, and I'm supposed to be reviewing Meditations by Marucs Aurelius, so that could be another vlog. But anyway, so what he's writing is like, yeah, like it's human nature. Like, what's going on today is human nature. Like, there's no point thinking that we're any different to what we've always been. We've always been like that. You know, we've not even developed or got any better. Like, we're still the same. I thought what was kind of interesting as well was that these are meditations that Marcus Aurelius has written, and it almost kind of made me think, you know, we have this view of ourselves of what we want to be like as a human being and the values that we have and that we want to kind of demonstrate in the world, and so we could write them down. But when we actually get into the world, we probably don't live by those values, because it's very difficult to do that and to be better than what we actually are. You know, we can have values, but actually they're not us. So like, we're trying to live up to values to be a better person. And I think maybe that's what Marcus Aurelius was actually doing when he was writing them down. It's almost like a reminder, this is who I am, this is what I want to be, this is what I want to be, this is who I need to be, whatever, because that's not actually who he is. So I think like when reading it you think, oh yeah, he's quite an amazing person, quite a value driven person, he'd be amazing to meet, but I actually think that him in reality to his meditations would be quite different. He talks a lot about like remembering who you are as a person, and that you can't actually be affected by the external world unless you let it, and that, you know, you have the power to not respond to people that are bringing you down and that are kind of being negative towards you, and that they will always be there. There will always be somebody that is antagonistic towards you, and your development as a person and your values that you have are not affected by that, and they shouldn't be affected by that. Like only when you respond to that and behave in folly like they do, that it becomes an issue, and then you end up behaving in a way that's against your values. So it was quite interesting to hear like what his values are, and that for me personally, like they align with my values anyway and how I am as a person. So I kind of wasn't listening to them in a critical way. I was kind of just, you know, taking them in and thinking, yeah, that's obvious. It was a bit repetitive, but again, these are meditations. Almost maybe the repetition is because he needs to remind himself to be like that, and that's what's most difficult to achieve. So yeah, it was really interesting, but it wasn't amazing. It didn't blow me away. So yeah, if you want to read it, then I guess if you don't have like stoicism views, and you don't have kind of, if you haven't really analysed your own value system and what you're doing and why you're doing it, then maybe that would be quite influential for you. But like I said, for me, like I was listening to it like as it's almost like a reminder rather than anything new. So it was still useful in that sense, because it kind of centres you back into your purpose and who you are. So yeah, I'll leave it up to you whether you want to read that or not.